And being well informed brings us to the disaster that we call public education in the inner city. 13 public high schools, 0% of the kids can do math at grade level. 0. Another half a dozen where 6% can. Another half dozen where 1% can. That's half of all the public high schools in Baltimore, all located in the inner city, where the kids are 1% or 0% math proficient.
It's
Chicago,
horrible.
53 schools, 0% are math proficient. If you can't, and 85% of blacks in the 8th grade, these are 13-year-old kids, can neither do math nor read at grade level, and half of them can't do basic reading, which means you cannot critically think.
Yeah.
And you can be manipulated by emotion.
So
it's scary.
It is
terrifying.
scary. I'll mention this. My father was a public school teacher on the south side of Chicago, and for his entire career he taught, and then towards the end of his career he became a vice principal and then eventually principal. And one thing he would talk about was the fact that when they, as the high school, would get these students from their middle schools, they were so unbelievably far behind that the best they could hope to get them to do was still significantly below where they should be. It's a very sad state of affairs when you look at how broken that system is.
Teaching to the curve.
Yes.
And as a result, everybody else suffers.
That's
which
right.
is why we got to have vouchers.
Do you want?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I was going to say. I was about to ask, what are some solutions to this?
Vouchers, but by far. There was a study done some years ago where government school teachers, which is a term I prefer rather than public school teachers, government school teachers were asked where you send your own school-age kids. Nationwide, 10% of us send our kids to private school. 6% of black families do. 49% of Philadelphia government school teachers with school-age kids put their own kids in private school.
What a shock.
Which shows you the people who know the school is the best teachers aren't putting their own kids in it. What does that tell you?
When you see how sausages are made, you don't want to feed them to your kid, I guess.
The CEO of McDonald's does not let his kid eat McDonald's. The people who run social media companies do not allow their kids to have smartphones. The
CEO of McDonald's does not let their kids eat at McDonald's?
Or Pepsi. Same with Pepsi.
Really?
Said he would never let his kids eat drink Pepsi.
Yep.
But it's good for you, good enough for your kids.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
That's totally fine.
And that's one of the massive problems with this country today. We think about what is best for our own families, which is of course what we should be doing, but we don't extend that and say, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing things that would actively harm somebody else's family. Maybe I should actually care about the people around me. I should care about my country. I should care about the national project.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that there is an importance on emphasizing the nuclear family in your decisions, but the nuclear family is a building block in a larger sphere, right? So you have your family who's a part of a community, and you make choices for your family, but hopefully they positively benefit your community, and your community then benefits your state, and goes on and on and on. I think it's a mistake to assume that people aren't seeing the consequences of that. I just think that, I knew someone who, when she had her first baby, you have to immediately make a pediatrician appointment. There's all kinds of things you have to do. And so she asked the nurse in the room, who she had had a positive experience with, where do you take your kids? I want to go wherever you're taking your kids because you were kind to me. And I know you love your kids. You seem like a devoted mom, and I need help. And I think that's what the culture we need to breed: mutual assistance, by knowing that someone who makes good decisions for their own family can recommend and give you advice and guidance when you start your own family.
No, quick, Hannah Claire, there was an article in The Atlantic, which is a left-wing publication a few months ago.
Yeah, Atlantic.
And it talked about all the different decisions that a young family makes when they're having a baby. And they said the most important decision is whether or not you're able to move into a neighborhood where there are a lot of two-parent households. Even if you move into one and you're a single-parent household, you're going to benefit by the culture. And the reverse, of course, is true too. You move into a neighborhood where there are a whole bunch of single-parent household, it's going to corrupt the culture.
Yeah.
Even just think about, I need somebody to babysit my child. I don't have anyone to babysit my child. If you're in a neighborhood with a lot of single parent households, that parent is at work. That kid is probably
at daycare. You get a lot of kids who are by themselves.
You're not going to have the community that you can rely upon to call on. And I think that that's part of the culture in America has shifted away from that. I feel, especially in cities, right? Everyone's bunched up close together, but there's not the same level of connection that you have if you live in an area where it's households on a block. I mean, that's how it was. I grew up in a cul-de-sac, right? We knew our neighbors. We knew all the people that lived on that street.
I didn't know what a cul-de-sac was when I grew up.
Well, it was called a court, but we called it
a cul-de-sac.
Yeah,
I grew up in a cul-de-sac.
Yes,
and you're right. You watch Leave It to Beaver. Yeah. You guys familiar with that?
Oh yeah.
And there's a dispute between the boys, and the parents would resolve it. The fathers would talk about it. There are no fathers.